Hey, what's going on, everybody? Commander Crane here, and we are back with another standard deck tech. And today, we're going to be talking about budget Deathtouch Toxic. I am very excited to share this very spicy budget list with you. As always, at the end of the video, let me know in the comment section below, what do you think about this deck? Is there a specific card that I definitely should have put in this deck that I did not? Or do you have suggestions for upcoming videos? Just let me know in the comment section. And before we hop into here, huge shout out to Lagfest once again for recommending that we do a new Toxic deck on the channel. I know we've done a few in the past, but with some new cards from Foundations, well, I guess not necessarily new, it's more of like a reprint, but with that new reprint, we kind of have a new style of deck that we can play in Standard, which is really cool, and it's also a card that's in Foundations, so hopefully a deck like this will be able to last for quite some time. So let's go and hop into here. The reprint that I'm talking about, of course, is Finn the Fangbearer. It was originally in Call Time, but it was just reprinted in Magic Foundations. 2 mana, 1/3 with Deathtouch. Whenever a creature you control with Deathtouch deals combat damage to a player, that player gets 2 poison counters. So we're kind of taking two style of decks. We're obviously having our Deathtouch deck, and then we're also having our Toxic deck and combining them, and we're having Death-touching Toxic creatures. Overall, I think it synergizes really well. Let's go and hop into our 1-drops here. So we're playing 4 Bilious Skull-Dweller, 4 Venerated Rot Priest, and 2 Ashnod Flesh Mechanist. So at least with Venerated Rot Priest and Ashnod, they kind of have, both sides. One's got the Toxic, the other side has the Deathtouch, and I do like both of these creatures. Venerated Rot Priest specifically, we're not playing any, super synergy, where we're playing a bunch of, cheap pump spells to be able to, make Venerated Rot Priest, super duper, all in on that. It's really just a good card in this deck, and then Ashnod being just a 1 with Deathtoucher is pretty good. But Bilious Skull-Dweller is the best of both worlds. It has Deathtouch and Toxic 1, so realistically, if we go turn 1 Bilious Skull-Dweller, and then we go turn 2 Finn the Fangbearer, we attack, we get the Toxic damage in there, and then they get 2 poison counters as well. So already at 3 poison counters with just the Bilious Skull-Dweller, and that's why I really like it. So Ashnod, there is better options that we can play instead of Ashnod itself, but we'll kind of talk about that later in the video. But this, after all, is a budget deck, so that's why we're playing Ashnod specifically in this slot. I just wanted another 1/1 Deathtoucher. So the next creatures that we're going to be talking about, I really like this common here, Flesh Borrower. It's such a, a card that you really wouldn't pay any attention to normally, but in this deck, it kind of helps fill the void of the creatures not already having Deathtouch. They can gain Deathtouch with Flesh Borrower because it's a 2/2 for 2 with Deathtouch, and then when it attacks, another target creature you control gains Deathtouch until end of turn. So it kind of helps a little bit with that. We also do have another creature in the deck that also can give Deathtouch too, but I know Flesh Borrower is the first one I wanted to talk about. Then we're also playing some really spicy 3-drops. 3 Bloated Contaminator and 3 Glissa Sunslayer. I really love Bloated Contaminator. It's just super good. 4/4 for 3 with Trample and Toxic 1. That's already really good stats. And then having the damage ability being able to proliferate is super strong. So in a way, a Bloated Contaminator is kind of like Toxic 2 in a way, which is kind of cool. But yeah, definitely a huge fan of the Bloated Contaminator. And then Glissa Sunslayer, we're playing 3 copies of it. It's just a super good card. Obviously, it doesn't have the Toxic to it, but it's really good with Finn the Fangbearer, just because it already has the Deathtouch. So definitely a huge fan of Glissa Sunslayer in this deck. The card is super duper strong. And then the last creatures I want to talk about today is Necrogen Rot Priest and Axebane Feryx. Necrogen Rot Priest is super good in this deck. It itself has Toxic 2, and then whenever a creature you control with Toxic deals combat damage to a player, that player gets an additional poison counter, and then it has the really nice activated ability being able to give a creature that has Toxic Deathtouch. So definitely huge fan of the 4 copies of Necrogen Rot Priest. Then we're also playing 2 copies of Axebane Feryx. Once again, it doesn't have Toxic itself, but it works really well with Finn the Fangbearer being able to give poison counters. And it's just a 4/4 for 4 with Deathtouch and Haste, and then it has the nice ward ability on top of that. So definitely a huge fan of Axebane Feryx in this list as well. And then the last thing we have to talk about is our non-creatures that we're playing. 4 copies of Hard-Hitting Question, 4 Infectious Bite, and 2 Overprotect. I really like Hard-Hitting Question and Infectious Bite, especially with all of our little Deathtouch creatures, just because we're able to pick off all their creatures regardless of our power. And then Infectious Bite is also cool just because it does give each opponent a poison counter. So definitely synergizes very well with this deck. Happy that we're playing 4 copies of each of those. And then Overprotect is just super duper sweet with all of our Deathtouchers, because Deathtouch and Trample can do some really cool things. And +3/+3 Trample, Hexproof, and Indestructible is just super duper strong. So that's why we're playing 2 copies of Overprotect. So that's the entire main board. Let's go and hop into the lands real quick. So we're playing 4 copies of Blooming Marsh, 4 copies of Land of War Waste, and 2 copies of Restless Cottage as our main dual lands. We are also playing 2 copies of Mirrex, just because it does make Phyrexian Mites with Toxic. So late game, you know, if we're in like a really grindy matchup, we can help make some extra toxic creatures, which is super good. And then rounding out our land base, we're playing 5 copies of Swamp and Forest. And as our spicy basic land of the day, obviously, you know, a Phyrexian themed toxic deck, we had to feature the Phyrexian art pieces from new Phyrexia All Will Be One. I really do like these basic lands. I know they're super popular with a number of different people just because of the very cool Phyrexian text on them, and I don't blame them. And the foils look really, really cool as well. So definitely a huge fan of these basic lands here. So don't go anywhere yet though. We still have to talk about our sideboard as well as some upgrade options for the deck. So sideboarding is going to be really simple. We're going to play some different, we're going to play some Duress. I mean, 3 to 4 copies in your sideboard is a must-have, especially in Standard right now. There's a number of different good mid-range and control decks, and Duress is a very, very good card that helps combat, you know, their, you know, removal spells and board wipes and different value enchantments and things of that nature. We're also playing Snakeskin Veil, playing a few copies of those just because we need to protect our creatures, especially in the, you know, post-boarded games where our opponent's going to be bringing in like Torture Towers and Lightning Helixes and Cutdowns and such. So that's why we want Snakeskin Veil. Carnivorous Canopy is kind of a weird card, but I do like it. So it's 3 mana sorcery, destroys an artifact, enchantment, or creature with flying, and then if its CMC was 3 or less, you proliferate. So that's why we're playing that, because we proliferate to help get some more poison counters. So definitely huge fan of the Carnivorous Canopy. And then we're playing a few copies of Leyline of the Void, just because there's a number of really good graveyard decks going around in the metagame right now. And Leyline of the Void, I never thought I would say this, is a really, really good sideboard budget option. So definitely huge fan of the few copies of Leyline of the Void we are also playing in this deck. And then the last thing we have to talk about is the upgrade options for the deck, which it's pretty simple. Shieldred. Shieldred has Deathtouch, so automatically Shieldred's pretty good in our deck. I wouldn't necessarily prioritize it. Obviously, it's super good, but it's not 100% needed for this deck. And then you can also upgrade some of the dual lands and the utility lands. There's a number of good ones you can play right now in this format. The current list, as it's constructed right now, is only $68 US, which is super cheap for a very, very fun standard deck. The last thing I want to talk about is normally, you know, I do like, I have like a budget list and then I have like an upgraded list. So the upgraded list that I decided to build this time is actually more of a mid-range deck. It's not so much just Deathtouch toxic aggro. So I cut some of the toxic creatures. I still have a few of them in, but I kind of wanted to do more of a Deathtouch mid-range list with like Vraska joins up and things like that. And I think the deck is really, really cool. I would definitely check it out. The deck still wins, obviously, with Finn the Fangbearer a lot of the time, but it has some really, really nice backup options, as well as, obviously, the quick kill that you can do with Finn the Fangbearer. So, definitely huge fan of that upgraded list, and you definitely should check that out. But overall, I really like this list. I'm super happy they decided to bring back Finn the Fangbearer in Standard, and it is legal for 5 years in Standard. So hopefully, as, you know, the sets rotate and we eventually lose some of the toxic creatures, hopefully that there's still at least like a Deathtouch deck that sticks around for a while, so that way people that love playing Finn the Fangbearer obviously can continue to do so in Standard, but we will have to see moving forward. So that takes us to the end of the video here. Thanks so much for watching. The deck lists are in the description below if you'd like to check them out for yourself. Huge shout out to our channel members, Ralph, Matt, Arcadius, Ray, Gary, Sarwanoki, and Night Red 3. If you were interested in being a channel member, it's only $1 US a month, and you get access to the exclusive Commander Crane Discord, as well as other features here on the channel. And we are currently on our way to 1,000 subscribers. If you are not subscribed to the channel, I definitely would recommend doing that, because you won't want to miss when we do our huge 1,000 subscribers giveaway here on the channel. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It'll help out the channel a lot. So I'm Commander Crane. Thanks for watching this video, and I hope to catch you in the next one.